Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas with Donovan and John. We are here to help you out. Now, let's just get to it.
There. Okay. Hey, thank you for coming back for another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas with Donovan and John. So today we're going to do, we're going to start with Donovan, who's going to tell us the story of
Maynard.
Wooly
versus Maynard.
Wooly versus Maynard. And that's a story you're going to want to hear. It's about freedom of expression and freedom from expression, basically, right?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I wasn't talking to them because I can't hear them. All right, so anyway, so he's going to start with that because we wanted to do that before and forgot, and that's my fault because we did this thing, never came back to the center. Anyway, so he's going to do that, and then we're going to get into
right to petition.
It wasn't there. Yeah, right to petition and right to assemble, right?
Yep.
Okay, so and Donovan is going to do right to assemble. I'll do right to petition. Is that the way we decided it?
Yep. All right. So I'm a big NPR podcast listener, and one of the ones that I just hit play and just rotates. NPR just rotates through their podcasts. One of the ones I was listening to was from a case in 1977 of Wooly versus Maynard, which I found very interesting because Maynard is a Jehovah's Witness, and they mentioned in the podcast from NPR called 1A how the Jehovah's Witnesses apparently are big fighters for the First Amendment rights in the United States, which I thought was unusual. I hadn't heard that before. So it was interesting. And Maynard is a Jehovah's Witness himself. And what he got busted for back in 75, I think it was, might have been 74. They talk about it in the podcast. But he was living in New Hampshire, and he covered up with a piece of tape the motto of New Hampshire on the license plate, which is "Live Free or Die," because he did not agree with that. As a Jehovah's Witness, he got pulled over, got a ticket, and I guess he paid the ticket and then kept it covered, got pulled over again, and eventually was arrested and had to do some time for covering up the motto on his state license plate. Basically, long story short, went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court agreed with him that the right to free speech is also the right to not speak as well. And he did not agree with the license plate. He said in an interview during the podcast that if he had the choice to live free or die, he would, didn't want to die. He would choose to keep his religion and support his cause and his beliefs. He did not.
I think in that case, what they were doing is saying he couldn't be forced. He couldn't be forced to. Yeah, it was forced.
Say something he did not want to.
Right, and they were saying that was forced speech, which is also against the First Amendment. So
exactly.
What was the final disposition of his case? Do you know off the top of your head? I mean, I know he won, but
he obviously won.
Right.
So, and then apparently he, in the interview later on, he talks about he moved to another state and it did the same thing again. I want to say it was Massachusetts. Don't quote me on that. They say it in the podcast. But whatever state he was living in, he did the same thing and he got pulled over and he's basically like, yeah, do you know who I am? So he did not get a ticket.
That's actually famous for this. So.
I'll pay you a ticket.
Yeah.
I'll see you in court, buddy. So it was great. It was a very interesting to hear the interview as well, because they actually not only interviewed Maynard, but also the gentleman who wrote him the original ticket. They had talked to other people that were involved in the case. So it was interesting to hear, a case from over 40 years ago. And that the plaintiff and defendant were still alive and could be interviewed and talk about it. So I thought that was kind of neat to listen to that. Again, that was on the NPR podcast called 1A. And let me get the name for it here right now. It's called "Introducing the Accidental Guardians of First Amendment Rights." And we'll put that link in. And this was from 2019, October 23rd, 2019 was when this first originally aired. 2 years ago. But it was, it's like I said, it's a 35-minute long podcast, but very fascinating to listen to. Good for Maynard, good for the Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not necessarily a religious man of God himself, but I do support the First Amendment, and I am all for that. So good for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and
He supports Burning Man.
supporting free speech.
Yeah, absolutely.
For them. All Americans, man.
Absolutely. All right. So are you going to go ahead and continue with, it was right to assemble, right?
Yes, right to assemble, First Amendment.
Go ahead.
Boom. Let me see here. Right of assembly guaranteed in the First Amendment in the United States. Definition of the right of assembly. I'm going to go through it right here.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. The principle of popular government, often constitutionally guaranteed, that it is the right of the people peaceably to assemble for any purpose not expressly prohibited by law. So, dash, compare unlawful assembly. But it was interesting to read that. We didn't talk about it too much our first one. Let me look it up here. It is interesting. There's no legal age to there's no legal age you have to reach to exercise your First Amendment freedoms. They are guaranteed to you the day you are born. There's also no citizenship requirement for the First Amendment protection. If you're in the U.S., you have the freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, and petition. What else? Rolling through here. Speech, press, religion, assembly. All right to gather in peaceful public protests and marches, rallies, and other assemblies is another core freedom guaranteed by the First Amendment. As a First Amendment scholar says in this overview, First Amendment freedoms ring hollow if government officials can repress expression that they fear will create a disturbance or offend. Unless there is real danger of imminent harm, assembly rights must be respected. And that is from, let me get you this website here, mtsu.edu.
Email that to me.
I will. I'll definitely send it to you. So it's Middle Tennessee State University. Okay. What else here? Look this up.
University, I think.
No, what?
A Christian university, I think.
That I didn't see. First Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for change. I may have one of the other, not enough coffee or too much coffee in me right now. So there is also, I got another page here, freedomforum.org, explore the First Amendment, freedom to assemble. The right to assemble is pretty straightforward, I would say, and would argue. So I guess unless John has anything to add or question me on that, I don't really have. It's one of the easier First Amendment rights, I would say.
For that, I mean, and I'll kind of go into that in a second, but the Supreme Court has expressly recognized the right of freedom of association and belief is implicit in the First, Fifth, and 14th Amendments. Freedom of assembly is recognized as a human right under Article 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which went through the UN. I'm not sure how many countries signed on to it. Could have been all of them. A lot of them ignore it. A lot of Muslim countries ignore it.
A lot of Asian countries.
I won't go any further.
A lot of Asian countries too. So it's
yeah, a lot of Asian countries.
More of a cultural thing.
Could be.
Which we could talk about. We could talk about that later on in a show, East versus West point of views and stuff like that.
Well, so could do that.
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting to learn that. I think we go into a lot of that with our Western point of views, and
we absolutely do.
And expecting that of other countries who don't have the same history and cultures that we have here. So their point of view is something totally different.
Absolutely. We talked about that when we talked about China.
I'm not saying I agree with it. It's
yeah. Well, and we talked about that when we talked about China.
Yeah.
Several weeks ago, maybe months.
Yeah.
At any rate. So, and one of the other things was it does not include the right of social association. So you don't have a right to associate with who, one-on-one type associations. You don't have that. It's not enumerated in this particular amendment. That's important to recognize. The government may prohibit people from knowingly associating in groups that engage and promote illegal activities. So you can't be part of technically, I suppose you can't be part of Antifa. You can't be part of Proud Boys or KKK. You can't associate that way legally, according to this. So that's gonna be the hairy one that you really got to pay attention to.
But then also you're looking at the freedom of speech and stuff like that too. So that's kind of covers some of that. One of the things I was looking up earlier on as we were talking when we first hopped on here like an hour ago, I was looking up HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee.
Right.
A dark period in American history, looking at people and who they associated with. And there's, the people got blacklisted and couldn't perform
Hollywood.
in the United States and stuff like that.
Yeah, Hollywood was crushed.
Yeah, and a lot of it, So I mean, I guess we look at it today as like, so what if you're a communist, or a socialist, and it's it's your right to think that, and associate and do whatever you want to do politically with that, as long as it doesn't endanger others. So it's interesting to look back on that all these years later. And one of the things I was talking about it yesterday with my housemate. How my former congressman, John's former congressman, Don Edwards helped get rid of the House Un-American Activities Committee with a procedural vote way back when. So it was interesting to love Don Edwards. May he rest in peace. Great congressman, great Democrat, great liberal progressive. Wish we could use someone like him today because he was an amazing man. But I was reading up a little bit on HUAC because wasn't a lot that I knew about it. It's not something that's necessarily taught in schools, other than it existed. At one point.
I remember in junior high learning about it, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was glossed over. My history teacher, I don't think he was left or right, or I wouldn't have known at the time because I was an idiot.
You're 12.
Yeah, I remember him discussing it and saying this is why this is bad, because literally a single individual in the government drove that whole thing.
And essentially,
and literally drove people out.
Yeah. It's also, if you think about it, it's unconstitutional, right? They're hunting people down for speech and association and things such as that, right? So
just to kind of dovetail on that, there are exceptions to this rule. Talking about the individual association, where the court finds that governmental interest in disclosure, registration outweigh interference with First Amendment rights. The government may also generally not compel individuals to express themselves, hold certain beliefs, or belong to particular associations or groups. We already kind of went through that. But yeah, so evidently there's some kind of stream that meanders through this law, and depending on which side of the stream you're on, you either do have the right or you don't have the right. And that's something else you should really be paying attention to in your circle of friends. It's kind of sad, to be perfectly honest. As somebody who's, I guess you could say, extremely conservative, at least as far as the Constitution is concerned, it's a concern to me that my best friend in Massachusetts likes to go out and play with guns on the weekend. He's part of a militia, and a core group in that militia has decided that they're going to do something that's illegal. But like the getaway driver in a bank robbery, everybody is culpable in that until you can remove yourself from it legally. And I mean, in the eyes of the court, not just, I'm not really associated with them. I'm going to go over here and be in this play date now. But it's just keep an eye on who your friends are, because my friend and I like to go shoot guns, at a range. But because he's tied to that militia, and that militia is now tied to an illegal activity, I am tied to that militia through my friendship with somebody I grew up with, or whatever. What's that? Yeah, guilt by association. Right, guilt by association, absolutely. So,
which But you can't hold up in court.
Yeah, you can't. Obviously, you can't delve into all of your friends' life. You just can't. That's not fair to your friend. And honestly, you do that, they probably won't be your friend anymore. In this case, that might not have been a bad thing. However, I just don't. I don't see how anybody can expect you to delve that deeply into somebody else's life, no matter how close you are. Nobody knows you the way that you know you. It's just not possible, and it's not. I don't think it's necessary. But moving on, there are a lot of there are. I'm going to use a bad word. There are shit tons of case law here, specifically for the right to petition and the right, or not the right to petition, but the right to assemble.
Yeah.
Right to petition.
Boatloads.
Well, in this case, I feel that what I used was proper. So sue me. The right to petition, on the other hand, it's a right to petition government for redress of grievances. And that's something that wasn't really allowed. You could go to the king and say, hey, this is what's going on in my life. And the king is all, doesn't mean dick to me. See ya. You're done. You're just done. You have no, you argue. That's a bright idea. Argue with the king in front of all of his courtiers. So yeah, in this case, the reason that is there is so that is not a viable option for the government. The option for the government is to hear you. And that's the important part, right? The right to petition the government for redress of grievances guarantees people the right to ask the government to provide relief for a wrong through litigation or other governmental action. In other words, tort law kind of comes out of this because it's private litigation. If there's, and of course, constitutional law comes out of this when they make decisions based on what the Constitution says. There have been several cases in the Supreme Court. Now we're getting on a little bit of a tangent, so I'll edit it out later. But there have been several cases in the Supreme Court where it sounded like they were going to go one way and then they went completely in the other direction. So I don't think oral arguments is a good definer of how the court is going to hear or how the court is going to decide. Nonetheless, so we're going to go back a little bit. I apologize.
John, I'm sorry to cut you off really quick, but going back to the HUAC committee, I mean, what's your point of view on the HUAC committee? Because I kind of look at it now as it really was an unconstitutional committee, sort of say, because they were going after people who had the constitutional right to say and assemble the things they wanted to, but this committee was definitely going out and hunting them down and persecuting them, right, and prosecuting them. So it's interesting but it was around forever. That committee was around for decades.
John Wayne was involved in it, and it started in like the 30s.
Yep, Charlie Chaplin, Dalton Trumbo, who I was talking about last time.
That was a good movie.
Yeah, so he's
you get a chance, watch Trumbo.
CU Boulder guy. Yeah, he went to CU Boulder.
So, really?
Yeah. So my housemate did.
Accounting for taste and education.
Yep. But, so it's whoops.
Anyway, but yeah, if you get a chance, go see Trumbo. Okay, so let's go back to right to petition. It works for the right of assembly by allowing people to join together and seek change from the government as well. So to understand right to petition, you need to also understand the right of assembly. They're really very much tied together, and they've both been used in several court cases together because they're very, very strong that way. Wow, that really came. Your picture changed like click, and it was like bam, really clear on your head, but it was on your coffee mug.
It's probably the mug.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's historic constitutional law. That's whole decisions. That's pretty much the end of that particular section of the First Amendment. Right to assemble, right to petition. They're both very, very important. They're both closely associated with the King of England and trying to get away from that single hand of power and make sure that the people's voice would always be heard. And honestly, this is One of the few countries that has that. And not to say anything positive or negative about illegal immigration, but the reason people come here is this freaking document alone. This document draws people in. We can't ignore
a lot of those
that.
people were persecuted for, what they were doing in their country and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I can't take away from them the desire to have that freedom. Everybody wants that. Well, I don't know that everybody wants that, but enough people around the world want it that it's in demand enough that they'll leave the country that they were born in, that they grew up in, leave their family, leave their friends, leave their job to come here. You don't see a bunch of people leaving here to go anywhere else. Not because they hate the country or what we're doing as a country. You don't see people leaving here for that. You see people leaving here for jobs. I know a lot of people have gone to Germany, Italy, France, England, Portugal for work. I've never heard any of them say, I can't stand the United States. I can't wait to get out of here.
I can't wait to go live in France.
I've heard that. Can't wait to live in France. But I don't speak the language.
France is awesome, dude.
I don't speak the language, so it'll take me a little while to acclimatize. But
y'all speak English. Y'all speak English, dude.
I don't. Yeah, you don't do that to French people. I just don't trust them.
If it wasn't for the French, we wouldn't be here right now.
Those people are all dead. 2 different peoples now. At any rate, which is the same argument I use for a lot of things.
King of France. The King of France helped the U.S. become a country.
I'm not taking that away from him, but the dude's dead, and they don't have a king any longer. They're not a monarchy. Quite a dictatorship, but they're not a monarchy. At any rate, we are tangenting badly. We love you all. We really appreciate
a show called Tangent. Just do that.
If I saved snippets, we could do it. Again, we love you so much. We are so appreciative of the 8 people so far that are our subscribers. Share this. Hit that like button. If you know somebody who might enjoy this, forward it to them. Anything that'll move us up a little bit in the algorithms. YouTube is very algorithm driven, and I haven't seen us in the top. I haven't even seen us crack the top 50 yet. But we don't do TikTok. We don't do anything else really. But we have a podcast which is basically just the recorded version of this, the audio version of this, for people that are always driving or always listening to something, but they don't have time for TV or YouTube, which I get, but I'm just asking. So yeah, smash that like button. I hate to say that, but everybody does. So there you go. Smash the like button. Do you have anything else, Donovan?
Yeah, support John and his 22 a day push-ups he is doing right now to bring focus on veteran suicide here in this country. He's doing it. I've been kind of giving him a little bit of crap about it, but I do support him in what he's doing. So right now. So which we talked about in an earlier show too on suicide.
22 veterans a day commit suicide on average. Commit suicide because of the things they've seen, the things they've had to do. Some people
lack of support from the military.
Lack of support from the military, or family and friends do not understand the things that veterans go through, especially in theaters of war. Sometimes they're not even in a theater of war. If you know a vet or you see a vet, say thank you. Let them know that they're not alone and that you support them. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
All right, man. Hey, keep up. 22.
Yes, sir. Every day.
A year from now, I want you doing 44, though.
That's not going to happen.
That's my challenge to you.
I'm a very fat man. 22 is hard enough, dude.
Yeah,
no
I
lie.
said a year from now. Oh,
yeah. Okay, a year from now, yeah, absolutely. I will be able to do it because I am going to just roll this through the whole year and get back to November next year, 2022. That's right, 2022, and we'll try to blow them all out in a week.
It's 22.
We're supposed to do 22 a day for the 30 days in November, 660 push-ups. I know it sounds silly, but most of the people I know that are doing this are vets themselves, and so they understand the need for the support, even if it's only emotional from people they don't know. Just the recognition alone sometimes can save somebody's life. You can save someone's life. I suggest you do it. That's all I got.
Support you, Johnny.
I appreciate that. I really do. All right, guys. You have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you're at. 5 o'clock somewhere, right? I'm going to go get a beer.
Peace, love, and soul, people.
All right. See y'all.
Well, I'm Donovan, and John's here with us today. Thank you for joining us for the free exchange of ideas, and we'll see you next time on the next show. See ya!